Welcome to the Global Focus Review channel. In the Old Testament, there is a narrative that, in all honesty, I find to be the most impactful in the entire Bible. However, I must caution that its content may be considered inappropriate for a younger audience. Before proceeding with this video, it is crucial to understand that its content is not suitable for all ages and may evoke traumatic memories from your past. The story I am referring to is documented in Judges chapters 19 to 21. While many are acquainted with chapter 19, few delve into the complete unfolding of the narrative. I firmly believe that there are crucial lessons both you and I can derive from such a disturbing story. Initially, I will present the story dramatically, and later, I will explore the lessons I identify. Join me in the book of Judges, chapter 19. In those days when there was no king in Israel, a Levite man residing on the side of Mount Ephraim took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. It's essential to note that this Levite man lived in the north of Israel, while his concubine or wife resided in the south in Bethlehem. The story progresses with the woman being unfaithful to the Levite, leaving him and returning to her father's house in Bethlehem of Judah, where she stays for 4 months. She betrays the Levite and goes back to her father's house in Bethlehem. Thus, the narrative continues with the Levite man deciding to reclaim his wife. He travels from the north, from the mountains of Ephraim, to the south, to Bethlehem, with the aim of winning back the woman and restoring the relationship. Upon reaching Bethlehem, the woman's father is extremely hospitable. The Levite multiple times asks to take his wife and return home, but the father insists he stays for another night. This situation repeats for several days until finally, the man decides to head back home. It's at this point that tragedy unfolds. The man and his concubine travel from Bethlehem in the south of Israel to the north, towards Ephraim. As they approach Gibeah with the day nearly ending, the servant suggests stopping in the Jebusite city for the night. However, the master refuses, arguing that they won't stay in a foreign city where there are no Israelites, choosing instead to continue to Gibeah. The servant suggests trying to find lodging in Gibeah or Ramah. As they continue the journey in the sun sets, approaching Gibeah in the tribe of Benjamin, to their surprise, no one is willing to accommodate them in their homes. Hospitality played a significant role in Israelite culture. As the night progressed, an elderly man appeared in the square, questioning why the group remained without shelter. The group explained that no one had taken them in. In response, the old man generously offered his own house for them to stay the night. The Levite expressed gratitude, emphasizing that they needed only a place to rest with enough food for themselves and their animals. They simply required a pillow to rest their heads. The old man agreed, and the Levite, his servant, and his concubine spent the night at the old man's house in Gibeah. The story took a dark turn when wicked men from the city surrounded the house and knocked on the door. They demanded that the old man surrender the guests so they could engage in sexual relations with them. The narrative revealed the presence of perverse men from the tribe of Benjamin in Gibeah. These men insisted on committing a grave atrocity against the guest. The homeowner tried to dissuade them by offering his virgin daughter and the guest's concubine, suggesting they do whatever they wanted with them, but not commit such an atrocity against the man. Unfortunately, the men did not listen, and they seized the concubine, subjecting her to rape and abuse throughout the night. At dawn, they released her. The account highlighted the unimaginable trauma endured by the woman. The narrative continued, describing how she returned to the man's house, exhausted and battered, collapsing at the door. When the master rose at dawn and ordered her to rise, there was no response. The woman, a victim of terrible abuse, had passed away. The subsequent events were tragic and shocking. The man placed her on his donkey, returned home, and, upon entering his house, took a knife to cut the concubine into 12 pieces, limb by limb. He then sent these gruesome parts throughout the territory of Israel. All those who observed this incident were bewildered, asserting that never before had such a dreadful occurrence taken place since the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. It is crucial to contemplate this narrative, engaging in discussions about the repercussions of this horrific event. The man not only brought his concubine home and mutilated her, but also affixed a letter to each part of the deceased's body, dispatching distinct pieces to the 12 tribes of Israel. Each letter meticulously described the actions of his own brothers from the tribe of Benjamin. When the other tribes were informed and read about the woman's tragic fate, they were astonished, asserting that such an atrocious act had never transpired in their history. This account unfolds in chapters 20 and 21, offering more facets to explore. However, at this juncture, let's extract some lessons. The initial lesson is that the absence of responsibility in our lives often leads to deviation. As highlighted in Judges, when there is no king in Israel and no demand for accountability or fear of explaining and taking responsibility for our decisions and actions, there is a proclivity to make harmful choices. The lack of accountability fosters a belief that one can act in isolation without being answerable to others. This precisely characterized the situation in Israel during that period. No king, laws without respect or enforcement, resulting in people making unexpected and harmful choices. The second lesson underscores the significance of treating every human being as a bearer of the image of God. In the narrative, the man espouses a misguided perspective, suggesting that it would be wrong to harm him, but others could do as they pleased with his daughter and the concubine of another man. His mindset reflected the belief that his life and virtue held more value than those of his own daughter and the other man's concubine. It is essential to ensure that we recognize each person as an individual bearing the image of God, endowing them with an inherent value. This prompts us to introspect our attitudes, especially when engaging with inappropriate online content, and to guarantee that we treat others with respect and dignity. The third reflection emphasized in this video underscores that distancing ourselves from God renders us more susceptible to engaging in actions we never envisioned. Examining the book of Judges holistically, we observe a nation progressively straying from God over time. Chapters 19 to 20 signify the climax of this departure, revealing the extensive distance the nation had traversed from God. This narrative serves as a cautionary tale, warning us that without maintaining a close connection with God, we risk straying and participating in actions that were previously inconceivable. The story unfolds beyond chapter 19, worsening in chapter 20 as a civil war erupts between the 11 tribes of Israel and the tribe of Benjamin. This conflict arises due to a grievous act committed by the tribe of Benjamin against one of their fellow Israelite brothers. Reading chapters 20 and 21 in detail is encouraged, but in summary, a colossal battle ensues, resulting in the loss of thousands of lives on both sides, leaving only 600 Benjamite men alive. In chapter 21, the other 11 tribes express compassion for the tribe of Benjamin, fearing their potential extinction. However, this compassion leads to a new predicament as they now worry about the extinction of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. This situation underscores the fourth lesson. Every decision, whether good or bad, carries inevitable consequences that we cannot evade. Despite the initial error of the Benjamites, the decision of the other tribes to fight and kill brings about undesirable repercussions. The Benjamites also face the fallout of their harmful actions. Every decision shapes our future, and often, we must confront the ramifications of our past choices. This narrative accentuates the reality that while we can choose our actions, we cannot control the ensuing consequences. The story unfolds further, revealing another poor decision made by the Israelites, allowing the Benjamites to kidnap women during a festival. Justifying this action to circumvent a prior oath not to give their daughters to any of the Benjamites, this illustrates how one bad decision often begets another, creating a cascade of unexpected and sometimes disastrous consequences. During the festival, the 200 Benjamite men steal and kidnap women while dancing, bringing them back as their wives. Although an extraordinary story, the main point is clear. One bad decision often leads to another, resulting in a cascade of negative impacts on various lives. Upon revisiting this story, it becomes apparent how many people were adversely affected by a single wrong decision, with some Benjamite men facing deserved consequences and others from Benjamin's suffering despite having no direct involvement in the original transgression. The people of Gibeah also experienced losses, with women taken from their lands and becoming victims of these circumstances. Nevertheless, the fifth and final lesson I wish to underscore is that God bestows grace upon us even when we make our most destructive decisions. The book of Judges concludes by noting that, despite their actions, the Benjamites managed to rebuild their cities, live in them, and receive a fresh opportunity. Each Israelite returned to their tribes and families, reclaiming their inheritance. The concluding verse of the book underscores the recurring characteristic of that time. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. This phrase encapsulates the entire book of Judges, highlighting the absence of effective leadership and the consequences of everyone charting their own course. Therefore, in the face of destructive decisions, God exhibits grace by allowing the tribe of Benjamin to rebuild. However, it is crucial to grasp that, despite the presence of grace, decisions still carry consequences, often unforeseeable and uncontrollable. If there's one takeaway from this video, it's the recognition that every choice we make has repercussions, some of which we may not even anticipate. See you soon.